Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another episode of the strategy series. Today's video is a little different. I haven't really done something like this before, but I kind of just thought about it and thought it would be helpful to you guys. So in today's video, we're going to talk about 5 mistakes in set 12 format, specifically tailored to this format, that you may be making that you can fix right now after kind of just knowing about it, right? So we're going to talk about those mistakes. So if you guys are new here, definitely subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, get more competitive info just like this, go check out the Patreon down in the description below. You can see where my head's at competitively. You can also inquire about some coaching there. That being said, let's get started. All right, the first thing I want to talk about, Blue Baby. Blue is not all that popular in the meta right now, but if you play against Blue, odds are you're playing against Blue Baby. So what's the mistake people are making when they face Blue Baby? Well, we're going to call it taking the challenge. And what I mean by taking the challenge is Blue Baby, Ultra Control deck. They play Floodgate after Floodgate after Floodgate, cards like Gohan's Baby's Minion and S2 Trunks Heroic Prospect. And a lot of times I see players, they keep on attacking through these floodgates just to be met with another dimension magic or maybe like a revenge big bang attack. That's not really a super optimal play. Think about it like this, right? If they play Gohan Baby's Minion and you decide to attack with another battle card, you have to lose a card, right? Let's say they follow up with a Revenge Big Bang Attack. Well, Revenge Big Bang Attack draws a card, so they've just evened out. That card replaced itself, and now you're down a card and didn't get an attack through, right? So taking the challenge is not always going to be very optimal against Blue Baby. It's kind of rough if you're a mid-range deck. That's kind of why Control beats mid-range in a lot of ways, but there are ways to counteract this, right? So, for example, there are decently good times to take the challenge. One of those would be, let's say your opponent uses Baby's Minion. Let's say they're tapped out and don't have access to sparking. You count their drop area. They are maybe 2 cards. They're relatively far away from getting that sparking. It's okay to kind of push through if you know you're going to get something worthwhile out of it. For instance, this applies heavily to aggressive decks. If I'm playing Red Broly and my opponent taps out on turn 2 for either a Gohan Baby's Minion or a Heroic Prospect, if I know that my hand is looking really good and I know I can push for game even through these floodgates, there are a lot of times where I'll do that. That does apply more so to an aggro deck, but if you're playing a mid-range deck too, you can kind of find yourself in these positions. Let's say your opponent uses a Gohan's Baby's Minion, maybe you're playing red and you use Denial of Hope, right? Then you attack with another battle card, maybe they Gohan Baby's Minion again. Well, in this scenario, they paid 4 energy. Let's just say they're tapped out. And again, you check their drop area, no sparking. That means you're pretty well off to go in for game. But you really just don't want to accept the challenge when it's very likely that doing so is going to put you very far behind, right? Dark Broly, another example, you don't want to push too heavily into a Heroic Prospect because unlike Baby's Minion, you're going to be losing even more cards. And if they follow up with the negate after you just swung through Heroic Prospect, you're going to be in big trouble. So you really got to kind of find out when it's more appropriate to take the challenge against Blue Baby. Next up, we're looking at King Piccolo, one of the top decks in the meta, if not the best deck in the meta. What's the mistake I see people making against King Piccolo? Attacking it correctly, right? So here's the thing. King Piccolo's backside activate battle. If you have a red Namekian or Demon Clan card face up in your life, flip the top card of your deck in your life face up, then combo with 1 red Namekian or Demon Clan in your life. So what this activate battle translates to kind of card advantage wise is King Piccolo can block a 15k attack for free once per turn. And not only can they block it, King Piccolo is going to +1 during every single one of your 15k attacks per turn. It's kind of an insane concept when you consider the fact that most Awakened Leaders and a lot of battle cards are 15k power, right? So if you just attack, you're netting King Piccolo advantage, which is kind of insane. So there are a few workarounds for this, right? Obviously, attacking with a battle card bigger than 15k does a good job, but besides that, if you know on a given turn that you have multiple 15k swings ready to go at King Piccolo, that could be a really good turn to start attacking the leader. Like, you know, your first 15k swing, yes, it will still get blocked, but every subsequent attack after that, they are going to have to spend a card to stop that damage if they don't want to go maybe below 4 life, maybe below 3 life, whatever the case is. You may want to watch out for the 1 red open energy for Attack of the Demon Clan. That does act very much like their leader skill, but I mean, that's not necessarily a skill you'll always know they'll have, and a lot of lists only play 2, maybe 3 copies of the card. But you can obviously account for that if they're tapped out. If they're tapped out, they're not going to have access to Attack of the Demon Clan. The other thing you can do is, let's say you're also a mid-range deck, maybe you're a control deck, just attack their Unison. A lot of times, King Piccolo has to have their Unison on board in order to really start ramping up their card advantage. So in that case, if you just have one 15k attack for the turn, you know it's a turn where you're not going to be able to apply too much pressure, just attack the unison. I see a lot of players just, mindlessly say attack your leader, when in case they could attack their opponent's unison. And a lot of these decks that rely on the combo step, attacking the unison actually hurts them quite a bit. Even better if you're able to remove King Piccolo's unison. That's just a general tip for the matchup in general, where you can kind of deal with their unison. They're going to really feel the negative effects of that. But besides that, if you have one 15k attack, don't send it at their leader, because they're just going to plus off of that, and you're going to kind of look like a fool in the process. So in that case, just attack their unison. Next up, we're talking about Mecha Frieza. Yellow is one of those decks that really punishes misplays. If you are doing something incorrectly, a good yellow player can really punish you for that. So what am I talking about with Mecha Frieza? Some players don't know this, but against Mecha Frieza, you kind of have to play a turn behind. Now, what do I mean by that? If you're up against Mecha Frieza, one of the key cards in their deck is Universe 9 Assemble, which they can use for 1 yellow energy thanks to the Unawakened Leader's skill, right? So they're going to draw 2 cards no matter what, but if you're tapped out, they get to play a battle card from their deck. Now, I know a lot of people probably know what Universe 9 Assemble does, but they don't quite realize that if they play a turn behind, they can actually make this card much less effective against themselves. And what playing a turn behind means is, let's say you have a curve. Let's say you have a set turn 1 play, a set turn 2 play, a set turn 3 play. You just push all those plays 1 turn behind. So on turn 1, you charge and you pass. This way, if your opponent uses Universe 9 Assemble, yeah, they'll still get the draw 2, but they won't get the free Chapil or the free Basil or the free Sorrel and Hop, right? And that can make a whole lot of a difference. Now, keep in mind, if your deck can like really easily remove those cards, like maybe you're in green with like Dormant Potential Unleashed, or maybe you have some easy minus 15k abilities in red, it can be okay to play on your curve in the sense of you don't really care if they play a battle card off U9 Assemble. But a lot of times, even in my testing, even if I'm playing red or green, I still do this just to make sure my opponent doesn't get the maximum benefit out of Universe 9 Assemble. But on the flip side of that, once it gets to later parts of the game and Mecha Frieza is awakened, they have Final Spirit Cannon, which they can use for free and tap your energy. So there becomes a certain point in the game where it becomes not beneficial to constantly leave energy open, because if they're on the awakened side, maybe on a turn 3 or 4, they use a life to play Final Spirit Cannon, tap your energy, and then play Bergamo. Well, all that defensive energy you just left open, now all 3 of it's tapped, right? So that could be a really big problem. So it kind of depends on how much you're attacking their leader and how much they're self-awakening. If you know they're going to be on their unawakened side for a few turns, it could be okay to play a turn behind. But once you get to their awakened side, you really kind of want to push as much damage as you possibly can, because in Mecha Frieza, their life is a precious resource. So the more you make them take to their hand, the less they're going to be able to do crazy things with extra cards like that. Another tip for Mecha Frieza, because yellow again has so many things you have to watch out for that can really catch you, are playing around Flying Nimbus and Zamasu Sacred Disbelief, right? So playing around both of these cards at the same time is almost impossible. What I mean by that is, if you want to play around Flying Nimbus, you're best off attacking with battle cards first, because then you get your leader swing, a unison swing if you have one, and then another battle card swing. If you want to play against Zamasu, you should be attacking with your leader first, because getting your leader tapped a lot of times means you're losing your leader draw, right? So how do we play around both of these? Again, you really can't, but you can make some educated guesses as to whether or not your opponent's playing Zamasu or Nimbus. Odds are they're probably playing Nimbus, but a lot of mecha builds that are mono yellow don't usually play Zamasu Sacred Disbelief. A lot of times they just play the Krillin draw 2 super combo. You can kind of get a gauge of whether or not they're playing Zamasu kind of in the mid game by seeing if they play Bojack and things like that. So if you kind of notice your opponent's playing a blue-yellow build as opposed to a mono-yellow build, then you can see they're probably playing Zamasu. In the case they are playing Zamasu, my recommendation would just be attack leader first the majority of the time, because if you're playing around Nimbus, yeah, they'll pitch 2 cards, but if you're not playing around Zamasu, they've only lost 1 card to negate your leader draw. So in my opinion, I'd rather attack my leader and get Nimbused, where they're losing 2 cards, as opposed to attack with a battle card first. They only spend 1 card to use Zamasu, and I lose my leader attack. So hopefully that makes sense. I would rather lose or fall into Nimbus rather than fall into Zamasu, if that makes sense. And the final tip here, guys, against red Broly, or kind of anything that attacks with decently big critical attackers, right? One thing I see a lot is players are trying to combo out of these bigger crit attacks, and it's not really worthwhile. Let me explain. So critical is a very lose-lose situation for the defender. You're either losing a life and not getting it to hand, or you're spending cards to defend that life, and either way you're losing out on cards, right? So the thing here is, especially with the awakened side of Broly at a lot of 15k leaders, this card is attacking for a 20k critical, right? So I see a lot of players thinking about defending it, but if it would take you 2 5k combos to defend 1 crit damage, think about it. You're trading 2 cards to protect 1 card. In that scenario, it can be worthwhile to just take that critical and save the 2 cards in hand to defend a different attack or defend the game shot, especially if you know like they're not going to win that turn, they're just going to chip you for crit. It can be okay to take that. Same thing with earlier crits, right? Let's say they're already awakened and you're still unawakened. It doesn't make any sense to spend 3 cards, or even a super combo in 1 card a lot of times doesn't really make a lot of sense to use that so early to defend a 20k crit, because again, you're saving 1 card by using multiple cards, which in card economy kind of doesn't make sense. Now, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a bit different. I hope I gave you guys some helpful tips for dealing with some of the decks in the meta. Again, these are the things I commonly see, but if you guys have anything you guys commonly see that you kind of want to address, leave it in the comments below. We can make a community project out of this. So with that being said, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.